Hello and welcome everyone, my name is Babi and today I am going to talk about titular titles in Babi's Guide for Crusader Kings II. For a more general guide on titles, there is a link in the description. The goal of titular titles is to represent rulers that are higher in status than a count for titular duchies, a duke for titular kingdoms, or a king for titular empires. All that do not rule over territories corresponding to a de jure territory. Because all this is quite a mouthful, I will elaborate more by delving into a titular kingdom and showing you around. If you take a look at the screen, you can see the Kingdom of Naples. The Kingdom of Naples exists because its king rules over territories that do not represent any de jure kingdom. I will show by toggling the de jure kingdom map mode. Now let's get back to the independent realms map mode and see what lands the King of Naples, King Charles, holds. He holds the lands of the Italian peninsula within the de jure kingdom of Sicily. He holds some pieces of land in Greece, Provence, and finally Anjou as well. After closer inspection, we can confirm that having a titular kingdom in this case is justified. King Charles' domain is large enough to be a kingdom, but while he holds most of the Kingdom of Sicily, he lacks any land within the Isle of Sicily and Malta. Other than that, titular titles differ little from de jure titles. If we take a look at laws, for example, we see that we have just as many options as with de jure kingdoms. Only changing these laws can't affect anybody outside of your de facto realm, as you don't have de jure territory. Most titular titles cannot be created and exist by default. Titular titles that can be created require special conditions to be met. One example is the Latin Empire, an empire-level titular title. It can be created only by rulers that are of the Catholic faith or a heresy thereof, control Calliopolis and Thrace. Finally, neither the Byzantine Empire nor the Roman Empire is allowed to exist. These are quite the requirements, but once met, the player is rewarded with an empire title. Of course, other prerequisites are true for different titles, and the only way to find out is to look them up in the files or on the CK2 wiki. A titular title, however, does not necessarily remain titular. Over time, rulership can become well established, and a titular kingdom or empire can become the de jure titles over these land. This process is called Jure Drift and is achieved through assimilation of lower tiered titles. Like I said, this does not happen overnight, and with it come several prerequisites. They are best explained through an example. A de jure duchy would become de jure part of the Kingdom of Naples when the King of Naples controls the entirety of the duchy. The King of Naples does not hold the crown of the recent de jure kingdoms to which the duchy belongs. The duchy is currently not held by anybody, or held by someone within the realm of Naples. The duchy is not part of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. The Kingdom of Naples is not a tribal title. All of this must be true for 100 years before the duchy is assimilated within the Kingdom of Naples. The same is true for empires with de jure titles as well, but it is the only method of acquiring a de jure status for titular titles. After a year of these requirements being true, one can check the de jure kingdom map and see fading lines which represent the assimilation process being started. When hovering over it, the player can see how much time is left. If you own the Charlemagne DLC and you fulfill all the requirements, you can found a custom kingdom or empire. These titles will be titular and get the same name and flag as your current primary title. As we saw earlier, one of the requirements of assimilation is that your title mustn't be a tribal title. But what exactly is a tribal title? Well, a tribal title doesn't differ much from titular titles. It can only be held by tribal rulers and can't have de jure territory. Obviously, assimilation of lesser titles can't happen when tribal titles are involved. Tribal titles exist to resemble societies that are still tribal and only exist by default. A tribal title can't be created under any circumstances and ceases to exist once its ruler gains another title of the same or higher level. The title can only be a primary title, and once it is not, it will be destroyed. As such, tribal titles become more rare the further the game progresses. Since more recent patches, there are only tribal titles to be found before the default start date, only accessible by owning either the Old Gods or the Charlemagne DLC. Now you know the ins and outs of titular titles. If you would like a challenge, I would recommend visiting the CK2 Wiki's article on titular titles. Look up titular titles that can be created. And finally, try to actually create them in a playthrough. Forming the Latin Empire is arguably the biggest challenge, but is most likely to give you a great deal of satisfaction. That wraps up this subject. Make sure to subscribe for future guides, and spread the word by sharing and liking. Thank you for watching, and as always, have a good one. Cheers.